top of what is likely to be a 30% plus year.
The ongoing service provider business, so the remaining assets essentially of what's left after it fully completes the spin-off of the microelectronics and semiconductor and optical components business since named Agere. So the company is really taking a good hard look, I think, of the strategy on a going forward basis. It needs to really determine how best to take advantage of the opportunity that is presented to itself and to other telecom equipment names that are out there. Well, I think it remains to be seen if they will in fact spin off additional units, although I do think that they're considering additional strategic changes to the business, including IPOs, spin-offs of perhaps the wireless business and even the optical systems business. So the remaining assets are a little bit harder to deal with because the market opportunity collectively for those assets is a little bit less robust than that afforded to the wireless and the optical systems business. But it's not necessarily an exit strategy. I think it's just trying to maximize shareholder value. Right now the company really does have a significant opportunity in the market, but yet it hasn't executed as well as some of its more nimble competitors on the opportunity. And I think on a going forward basis, the company needs to understand clearly that it is in a crisis mode and that competitors are taking market share. So it's really trying to figure out the best way to capture the market value and frankly to maintain fair amounts of employee retention. Right now I think retention is an issue within the company, and I think the labor market in New Jersey is a little bit less fluid than it would be in Silicon Valley. I think attrition rates right now are in the 20% range, but I think that if Lucent were in a more competitive market, it could very well have rates that are higher. But I think it is clearly reviewing the business portfolio and needs to make a decision as to how best to capture some opportunity. Clearly good people are looking, and I think that there's a lot of uncertainty as to the nature, extent, and the scope of the headcount reductions, which I think are pending. I think the company could very well cut back as many as 10,000 employees. Probably wouldn't be announced until the new year through the holidays, but I think it really has conducted a fair number of skills assessments within the company and has to determine the right level of employee base and with which skill sets are really appropriate for the going forward business. And we'll probably have some headcount reductions in the corporate centers and as well probably in some slower growth areas like the circuit switching business. I think it's difficult to say, frankly. I think Nokia could potentially be interested in some assets, more likely to be in the wireless part of the business, although it has a very good position and brand in Europe. I'm wondering if it really does make sense, frankly, for it to get into the North American market in such a big way. If Nokia were to try to acquire all of Lucent's service provider assets, it would wind up with a revenue base of $30 billion, the majority of which is in the United States market. And so it would be a drastic change for the company. I think Alcatel has made some inroads in the U.S. largely by virtue of some acquisitions. I think it would make a little bit more strategic sense for a player like Alcatel than Nokia. But again, it's all speculation, and depending on if those companies strategically would want to buy the assets or if Lucent really felt that that was in the best interest of the company long term. I think it's a good question that needs to be asked. Right now, investors are expecting a significantly negative December quarter and as well with negative earnings per share. So I think on the going forward strategic business in terms of the service provider assets, we're really looking for a single-digit growth in terms of the business in 2001. So the service provider business really is expected to grow only in the single digits when you take out the spin-off, the Agere microelectronics and opto components business. So I think that really needs to be reflected in the stock price, and frankly, I think it is fairly reflected in the stock in its current level. I think that the filing of the S1 for Agere, which happened on Monday, really was a catalyst of stock price movement for the company. Now that's not an event in and of itself which was unexpected. We've been expecting that for quite some time. I think the recent rumors of the takeover are something which has not been quite as anticipated in the market, and it does have some validity, but I think Lucent would be more interested in selling parts of the business rather than to an outright takeover. Oh, the filing of the Agere spinoff took place this past Monday. Exactly. I think it's a tough call. I personally would recommend that investors stay on the sidelines and not buy any stock based on takeover speculation or additional structural changes to the business, but rather wait for further evidence of an operational turnaround. And I think we're waiting to see that. I think we clearly have seen a September quarter where the circuit switching business was negative, and that in the optical space for 2000, the fiscal year that just concluded in September, growth was virtually flat, and so we didn't see the type of market share gains. In fact, we saw some market share losses, and so I think we need a little bit more operational evidence as we look into 2001 before I recommend jumping into the stock, particularly when business with AT&T had deteriorated in the optical space in 2000, and now it seems to be proliferating into the wireless space with some lost business to Nokia and to Ericsson and even to Nortel. Right. Well, right now, Nortel, I think, is reacting, the shares are reacting to speculation that the company will miss its December quarter and may lower its outlook for its fiscal 2001. And the company has maintained that top line and bottom line for 2001 would grow in excess of 30%, somewhere between 30 and 35% for both EPS and revenue. And I think it's becoming difficult for investors to see that type of growth happening in 01, given that the revenue projections that the company is sticking to right now for the optical systems business is in the 40 to 45% range. So if there's any change to the circuit switching revenues for Nortel in 01, and if optical systems grows only at 40% on the low end of their expectations, it might make for a very difficult time to make 30 to 35%. No, I don't think so. I think there's no correlation right now between what's happening with Lucent and with what's happening with Nortel, although there could be some rotation out of Nortel into Lucent. But I think really what's happening with Lucent is more short-term trading as opposed to a fundamental shift or fundamental confidence in the ongoing service provider business. Great. Thanks, Mike. Great. Mike, thank you so much. We'll hope we'll find a couple of good clips in there. Thank you so much. Bye.